everybody, and welcome back. Good to talk to all of you again today. And today on episode 14 of How to Get Good at World of Warships, we're going to talk about destroyer positioning. Now, do keep in mind that in the event that you have an enemy carrier, I would say start praying that the enemy carrier is bad. Because if you run into a good carrier player, as a destroyer, especially a high threat destroyer, you can expect that good carrier player to just hound you until you die. You can take certain steps like popping your smoke to dissuade them from striking you. You could consider maybe hiding near your ships, but remember, all those things removes you from being able to do sort of your job as a destroyer. And yeah, so anyhow, in the event that you don't really run these carriers, here's a couple of positioning tips for the various types of destroyers, and we're going to start with torpedo destroyers. Notably, these are going to be the Japanese torpedo boats. Typically, Japanese torpedo boats are some of the best in tier in terms of their concealment. Now, it is very important for you to learn the concealment of enemy destroyers. What can you outspot, what will spot you, etc. The primary role, I would say, of the Japanese torpedo destroyers is to provide spotting for your team, and not only to provide spotting, but also to constantly have your torpedoes be a threat. So your torpedoes should always be that danger weapon that they're not 100% sure on the enemy team where your weapons are going to be coming from. That generally means in order to do that, you have to be staying invisible, not get spotted, so that when your torpedoes show up, they're going to be like, surprise, here they are, right? If you get spotted on the mini-map, it becomes easier to predict where these torpedoes could be coming from. So that's one. Two, when it comes to your torpedoes, remember that when you fire a torpedo salvo, you should, on that salvo you fire, generally land at least one torpedo. Okay? So that means that if you need to sneak closer, you can hold your torpedoes. You don't have to constantly fire them, but you can hold them, get in the right positions, and then fire them. What you're going to be looking for is ships that are trying to head somewhere, trying to stay angled to something, trying to kite away from something. You're going to find those types of ships to fire your torpedoes at. Very, very, very important. So take, for example, that earlier torpedo wave that I fired against the Jean Bart. I could see that the Jean Bart was trying really hard to get to the sea cap, kind of going in a nice straight line, going fast. So, put a whole bunch of torpedoes in his path. Got a very nice series of hits, and he got finished off with one extra SAP salvo from the Venezia. So fantastic. Now, aside from those first two things, which is spotting and providing that torpedo threat, the Japanese destroyers can also be used, assuming you have a concealment advantage, can also be used as a capping type destroyer. Now, this is important to note. You'll notice that when I first went for the middle cap, generally not the preferred cap, but in some cases, if you feel like, hey, the enemy team might not be able to contest it or whatnot, you can go to the cap and then reverse into it. It's very, very important to reverse into caps that you're going to take. The reason for that is because if there's a threat that pops up, or if there's a wave of torpedoes that come towards you, all you have to do is accelerate and you're already on the way out. Once again, another torpedo wave fired off against this Richelieu. Now, this Richelieu, again, I can tell that this Richelieu is trying really hard to push in and kill a Venezia. So, good torpedo salvo right into the path of the Richelieu here. Richelieu is really, really damaged. With that low amount of HP here, I could have actually fired my gun to try to finish off that battleship. But there's always a judgment call that you have to make. If the enemy ship was, let's say, by themselves, not much on your team, let's say, shooting at them, and they're really low HP, open up. Try to get that kill. Try to secure it, get rid of them, take them out of the game. But in this case, there was a whole bunch of ships firing at him, and I was thinking, I really don't want to destroy my concealment, so decided not to open up. Again, on the mini-map, I'm not here on the mini-map, right? I've torpedoed two ships, but I'm still not appearing on the mini-map. That's fantastic. Now, with the Richelieu gone, it is my turn to move on to the cap. Take the B cap for our team, because our team does currently need a cap. Oh, enemy Minotaur is right there. I'm pretty sure it's a smoke Minotaur, because I did see a smoke cloud in the vicinity of his previous last spotted position. So I'm guessing that Minotaur. So I'm going to keep him spotted. And so aside from that torpedo threat, I'm also going to provide vision. So I'm going to keep this Minotaur spotted. Toss some torpedoes down the channel there, just in case the Minotaur decides to turn south of the island and then dash over to the gap and then maybe pop a smoke and then engage the Iowa. So kind of, if he does do that, gonna dissuade him from that. Okay, I'm gonna continue onwards. I'm gonna take this cap and I'm gonna cut through this line here, okay? Because there is a battle line, but there's a gap here. The reason I'm gonna do this is, one, my guess is the FTG is probably gonna try to come for the B cap here, or he's gonna continue to go south and go for the C cap. My guess is, based on what is pushing in from north from our team, that he's going to do one of these two things. So if he had continued to go south, that was the salvo of torpedoes for him. Looks like he's deciding that he's not going to do that. I think he's going to decide to try to go and contest B. Okay, good. I'm going to keep him spotted. And you'll also notice that I'm continuing to maneuver in a way where I'm not getting detected, right? Not trying to get myself spotted here. Really, against the FTG here, the bare minimum in terms of distance away. Of course, being close, aside from allowing myself to have spotting on him, also does grant me the ability to have torpedoes on him, and these torpedoes, well, we'll get to him in a real hurry. So here we go. I'm seeing, I think the FTG here is going to make a move here for the cap, so dump some torpedoes into his path and continue to maintain vision. Ooh, okay, enemy torpedoes here. There's a Thunderer to the south as well. I think those torpedoes on the FTG will look okay. Alright, against the Thunderer, I'm going to have to get some torpedoes on him as well. Okay, yeah, those are good torpedoes. Okay, not good. I got hydro spotted by the Minotaur here. Okay, so I'm going to fire a torpedo here, right? It's kind of a, hey, you got to get the set off. What direction is that Thunderer going to turn? My guess is, in order to get all of his guns onto me to engage me, he's probably going to turn out. And that's why I launched torpedoes, to the other side, the turning outside of the gray line. Didn't go enough though. I should have gone a little bit more. Still gonna clip him. Yep, I'm gonna clip him here with one torpedo. Immediately, as soon as I'm outside of the hydro range, I decide to pop smoke. I just want to break visual cover right away. Concealment is life on the Japanese destroyers. If you can maintain your concealment, you are dangerous. If you get spotted and you get obliterated, you're in trouble. Okay, so paying attention to enemy destroyers, especially destroyers that can spot you, paying attention to radar ships, all super important. Once again, I have torpedoes coming up right now. Ooh, yeah. My FTG charged in here, not good. Again, here we go, right? I have torpedoes. Which direction is the Thunderer going to go? Again, I assume, judging by his movement, I assume he's probably still going to be turning out. Again, he's probably just going to get more of his guns out, is my bet. Hence, another wave of torpedoes in that direction. I just don't think I see him turning inwards, because there's a threat sort of that's in front of him that is requiring him to turn out. So another wave of torpedoes. Again, you'll notice that I'm very close to these enemy ships. I'm not far away. And I clip him again with a wave, and that gets me another couple of torpedo hits, and I've got myself already high caliber. Fantastic. So with that out of the way, take a look at the map. There's an Akazuki, a Brindisi left, a Shima, and a Minotaur. Okay. C-cap, I think, is going to be what I'm going to go for again, most notably because I know what's there. It's a Shima and a Minnow. Minotaur, I already know, does not have radar, so as long as I don't get spotted easily by the Shimakaze, I should be okay to go there and try to contest that cap. Utilizing RPF again to kind of give me an idea of where the closest enemy target is. Alright, so, yep, there you go. I see the Minotaur, he's popping smoke again, so I know that he's going to be trying to, hide in his smoke, fire off some of his, guns, try to get some damage here. So I'm going to fire some torpedoes into his smoke screen, because if he sits still, if he is unaware, he's going to eat some torpedoes. And Shimakaze torpedoes hurt. Now, by the way, if you're playing a Shima, I do recommend taking the 12-kilometer torpedo set. The 20 kms are just not all that useful, and the, shall we say, the 8-kilometer set is just a little bit too high risk, and it does lack some flexibility, especially when you do need some range. Okay, I do manage to plunk one torpedo hit there on the Minotaur, I think, and scored some damage there, so that's positive. Gonna see if I can maybe try to get some vision here. Not really gonna risk the smoke firing penalty here. Just mostly gonna see if I can eventually maybe spot this guy as the smoke starts to dissipate. I know he's still in there because I can see his shells coming out. Plus, RPF does indicate that that's the closest ship. Not sure where the Shima is. I know the Shima and the Minotaur here are in a division, so my guess is maybe the Shima is on the other side providing vision against the Neptune. So I'm just thinking, okay, if the smoke dissipates, I'm going to be able to spot the Minotaur. And there he is, and look at that. I'm very, very close to him. Within, a couple hundred meters of... Oh, actually, there's the Shima. Okay. Not expected. I'm going to dump my torpedoes here. I'm going to immediately pop smoke, and I want to break contact here. Have to remember, okay, smoke in this game is a double-edged sword. Yes, it can allow you to disengage, but sometimes you're also providing cover for your opponent. So you have to be very careful about that. Anyhow, get a beautiful torpedo wave against their destroyer, and the extra one goes there and kills the Minotaur. So key things to remember as a Japanese destroyer: 1, really, really abuse that stealth of yours, okay? Position yourself in a way where people can't see you, but that your torpedoes are close enough distance-wise where you can get good torpedo salvos off. Make sure to keep an eye out on radar as well when you're doing that. So vision, torpedo threat is 1, 2. Make sure to help your team in terms of capping and screening. When you're going for the cap, make sure to reverse in, okay? So if there's a destroyer that does spot you when you're reversed, you can accelerate away, and you can even pop up some, salvos with the rear guns, because Japanese destroyers, guns are on the rear. Pop off some good salvos on your way out, get some good damage. Generally speaking though, Japanese destroyer guns, you have them, but only use them when you need to use them, okay? Don't recklessly use them. You don't want to announce your position constantly. You want to use them at the right times. Moving on, and now we're going to be talking more about the pure gunboats in the game. So this is typically characterized by ships that are fast, have good guns, not the world's best concealment. Okay, so at the end of the line, Khabarovsk, Kleber, they kind of fit this mold. Now these ships generally play differently than the pure torpedo boats. Whereas torpedo boat is about maintaining stealth and getting your torpedoes and being that threat, the pure gunboats are typically for just being on sides and harassing people and harassing people and harassing people, and then using that good speed to sort of dodge tank. Now, before I forget, this and the next one are replays provided courtesy of a loop from my clan. So just want to give him a little shout out there. Thank you for suffering for playing all the destroyers and trying to collect footage for me. All right. So typically what you want to do in a gunboat, okay, is that the early stages of the game, you want to be on the side, on a flank, whatever, but you want to be engaging enemy ships while you're in a kiting away position, okay? Don't ever be caught in a situation where you're charging forwards, you go, oh crap, there's something wrong, you start opening up with your guns, but then it still requires you to make a full turn, because if you have to make a full turn, you're going to get punished for it, okay? So kiting away type position, and start engaging this way. First of all, it allows you to get all your firepower away, and also allows you to dodge more effectively because you're running away at speed and you're dodging and weaving, and it's usually not fun to shoot a target like that, okay? Khabarovsk's goal is continue to harass, and this is again true for the Russian gunboats. You're very harassment focused. You don't really have torpedoes in the early stages of the game because there are a lot of enemy ships around. Later on, as the game progresses, you can use your torpedoes in more ambush type scenarios because you kind of know where enemy ships are going to be. Early game though, it's a lot of this. As soon as you start opening up and as soon as the enemy team will spot you for the first time, you're already basically turned away. You're basically getting, your guns on target and you're pew-pewing. When there is little available island cover that will provide some kind of concealment so people can't easily spot you, use it, okay? But when you are spotted, start to juke around, whether it's using speed, whether it's using whatever, anything that you can use to help you juke, okay? Of course, currently, ships like the Khabarovsk is they're kind of in a not so great place, okay, as a whole. But that's not all the ships. It's just notably Khabarovsk because she still eats full BB pens, and it's just a little rough. But ships like the Kleber, for example, very, very strong, again, in non-CV games. CV games, like I said earlier, yeah, just start praying. Really, really, really start praying. Pray that the enemy CV is just terrible. That or the enemy CV doesn't have a hard on for you. Just kind of pray for that. Anyhow, once again, when the situation allows for, kind of, again, enter that kiting away sort of posture and annoy. Continue to annoy. And that is your job. You annoy, you annoy, you annoy. When the enemy team starts to really kind of put their attention towards you, you stop shooting. Fall off detect, and wait for them to go worry about something else, and then you engage again, right? And your main goal is just hit them in the superstructure, set fires, hit them in the superstructure, set fires. Be really, 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 really annoying is like the key thing. There is not much more to be said for gunboats. Try to find places that you can exploit, whether it is sometimes even if it's like a let's say a hole in the enemy lines that allows you to get to the back of them, you can do that too. I've done that before in Kleber, where saw a gap between the left and right flank, and I just decided, all right, you know what, I'm gonna go pop up behind the other flank. They don't usually like that, because suddenly you have a destroyer coming up from behind you. Now in order to engage it, you got to turn your ship, turn your guns, but there's an entire enemy team in front of you, so you don't really want to do that. So then whatever's behind you can annoy you, right? So that is, you're really trying to maximize the usage of your speed to be difficult, okay? Also, another thing about gunboats is that when you are engaging, you're either off on a flank or you are behind your own lines. So where, let's say, your battleships or whatever, they're in the front, these ships do not like being in the front, okay? They're usually more comfortable sitting in the back a little bit more, dropping shells down on enemy ships at range. Of course, later on in the game, as more space is available, then more plays can be made, all right? If you are playing in conjunction with a stealthier destroyer, let the stealthier destroyer take the lead and almost treat yourself as like an ultra light cruiser. Okay, your job is to provide that fire support if and when, let's say, that destroyer spots another destroyer. So where in, let's say, two stealthy destroyers, they spot each other, when normally the assumption is, okay, this isn't going to be a one-on-one, you're turning it into a two-on-one situation. And carrier. Oh, thank goodness I don't think this enemy carrier player is very good. Good enemy carrier players will hound you until you die as a destroyer. So thank goodness I don't think that carrier was particularly good. It looks like a Loop's carrier in this game is actually in a nicer position because he's more forward, more closer to the front lines, so that is good. Where their team's carrier, no idea what he's doing. And also their Venezia, not particularly sure what he's doing either. I think he's trying to find the carrier in like the wrong place. Anyhow, so this flank mostly been taken care of. Fantastic. As a Khabarovsk, once you get more space, there's more to do, right? So come over here. Okay, tiny little assist capture point, and okay, a little bit of EXP there, like a tiny bit. Moving on. All right, so next thing would be probably to start moving towards the sea cap here. Again, there's a lot more room now for Khabarovsk, so that's good. Venezia is really far away. Real threat on the enemy team here would be, let's say, a Moskva, but the Moskva is also really far. Maybe, yeah, there's probably not that many threats. Maybe if the Shima has a lot of HP, if the Shima can enter like a kiting away duel, it can chunk a Hob down, maybe, but it'll depend. So yeah, let's just cut through this cap here. Okay, the Montana is dead, which is also good because that eliminates another kind of major threat. Oh, spotted here. Okay, definitely the Shimakaze that's spotting here because yeah, the Moskva is still too far and we know where the Moskva is, so definitely a Shima spotted. Ooh, okay, unexpected. Figure the Shima might have actually been north, but it's actually south. Shima here, oof. Yeah, engine gets taken out, decides to blow a smoke. Not 100% sure what the Shima's plan here was. Yeah, it's not the best play. Maybe the Shima just didn't have the right captain skills, like maybe didn't have last stand, but realistically, if you got spotted, like as early as this, right, the Shima can spot the Khabarovsk. Shima really should have just, maybe pop smoke and disengage by turning south along the island, that little island, and then trying to disengage that way might have been the better choice. But yeah, that was a little not the world's best play. Okay, so late game, this is where Khabarovsk's torpedoes can come into play, right? So you've got much more, let's say, room to maneuver, lots more places to hide, lots more places to jump out, and you're a fast ship. And the same is true for Kleber as well. Kleber, a lot more capabilities even than Khabarovsk, for this kind of play. You're fast, you've got, good torpedoes, and so what you do is you just pop out here. Okay, again, remember 1.5 times speed, so torpedoes are going a little faster. Real life, it's not that fast. There you go, and you can clean up, get some damage there. and it's a pretty good game as a Habrovsk. Hopefully this gives you a sense of how to play as a gunboat. Generally early game you're staying more at range, spamming, harassing. Later on, as you have a better sense of things, you can start to move in for more risky plays, let's say. And finally, we're moving on to the hybrid type destroyers. Now, these hybrid type destroyers are generally characterized by a few traits. Okay, so they generally have pretty good gun DPM. Their arcs, in most cases, will tend to be a little bit more floaty because they don't usually have the Russian 130mm ballistics, the Grozovoy being a nice little exception here. They'll typically have, pretty good torpedoes that are usable. They'll have smoke. In some cases, like the Z-52, they'll have hydro. Daring, for example, has that as well. So they'll have some other tools as well. But generally speaking, they're not the fastest destroyers in the game. They're not the stealthiest destroyers in the game. They have good guns, but not the best guns. They have good torps, but not the best torps. That kind of thing. And they can sort of do a little bit of everything. So gearing is a very good example of this. Start of the game as a gearing, you can, again, depending on what the enemy ships are and how good their concealment is, you can almost play the role of a shimma. If it's a cap, you can typically go to a cap, reverse into it, and begin to take capture points. And of course, when your torpedoes are ready, fire off a torpedo. In the case where you have a spotting advantage, make sure to abuse it. By the way, remember the whole thing about smoke being a double-edged sword? This Ognovoy on the enemy team screwed up royally. Deployed a smoke for really no good reason, and he's basically going to remove any vision that he could have provided for his team, and he's also going to remove any early warning he was going to get that there was somebody who was spotting him, right? He just didn't know until proxy spot. And of course, gearing at this kind of distance against an Ognovoy doesn't stand a chance, right? Especially since the Ognovoy is now blown his torpedoes. Gearing's just going to eat you alive. Alright, so fantastic. Destroyer number 1 taken care of. As a gearing, right now, because there's things shooting at you, notably in the Fletcher, the Seattle, whatever, probably best to not shoot, which is what happens, fall off detect again, and then start to reposition yourself into a better position here. Friendly Asashio blew a smoke. That's a kind of a little bit questionable. Asashio being, a member of that torpedo boat family, amazing concealment. Not particularly sure why the smoke needed to be blown. Typically you have a good awareness of enemy radar ships and their positions and their range. You shouldn't get yourself into that kind of trouble. And then if you do get radared, don't pop a smoke, because radar goes through smoke anyways, right? At least that smoke did provide a little bit of cover for the gearing here. So if you're the gearing player and you see free cover come up like that, go for it. Enemy Oland comes out here, starts to engage, does a bad turn, eats a gearing torpedo, and that's that. Okay, so going back to the hybrid destroyers. So at the beginning of the game, you can play kind of the role of the torpedo destroyer almost. You can go contest the cap, because generally speaking, your concealment's going to be pretty solid. Of course, do keep in mind that there are some ships that are going to be a danger to you, and you have to be aware of what they are and where they are. For example, if you're a non-legendary mod gearing and the enemy team has a Yugumo and the Yugumo knows what they're doing, you're going to have to be a little bit more careful, especially if they're on your flank of going for a cap. To remind you all again, if you're going to go for the cap, make sure to reverse in, because if you do get spotted and you know that you can't outspot something and enemies are going to start shooting at you, you can just accelerate and immediately get off, right? Not only that, but you can also pull some distance, which will help greatly. In a situation where as a hybrid, you realize, okay, I can't outspot whatever is going to be spotting me constantly, and I can't really gun that ship down. Okay, you transition your role to being a torpedo boat for a while. And then, if you do maneuver yourself into a position where you can spot that annoying destroyer at close distances, like in an ambush type scenario, like against that Ognovoy, for example, then immediately go to your guns and try to finish off that annoying, stealthier than you destroyer. Here's another situation here. See where the Buffalo is? See where the gearing is in this case? Okay, watch what happens. Enemy Shimakaze, look at that. Pops up immediately. That Shimakaze is actually pretty healthy. He's trying to charge down this Buffalo here. So as a gearing, this is perfect. You've reached essentially a quasi-ambush type scenario. Pop out, utilize your guns, beautiful DPM, finish off that Shimakaze as quickly as possible before the Shima can really do much else. So that is what you're going to be doing. Now, if you're running into, let's say, the pure gunboats, like let's say you're running to like a Kleber or Haberovsk or whatever, things that you can't win a gun duel against, okay, what you do is you use your good concealment, and then you're going to go and keep them lit. You don't have to shoot at them, you just keep them so lit that your team is going to shoot at them, right? You make sure that those ships cannot fall off detect, ever. And, they're not going to be super comfortable if they can't just stop shooting and fall off detect. If you can keep them spotted, great. And also, as you're keeping them spotted, you're providing vision for your team. You're also providing that torp threat. So, these are things that you can do as a hybrid. You have to always be willing, though, to transition from one to another. When there's an opportunity to use your guns, use your guns. When the opportunity is to use your torpedoes, use your torpedoes. Rinse, repeat, okay? But always remember that when you're playing the hybrid destroyers, yes, you have those offensive tasks, guns, torpedoes, whatnot, but still remember that you are going to be one of the more key destroyers on your team, because you do have, generally speaking, good concealment. That, you pay attention. Does your team need a cap? Do they need you to freeze a cap? Do they need you to go and contest an enemy destroyer on cap, assuming you have roughly on par kind of concealment? Make sure you don't stop doing that. Does your team need you to spot? Because it's possible that spotting is what your team really needs in order to push up, let's say, on a flank. Always remember to provide those supporting tasks as well. Hybrid destroyers are not easy to play because there's a lot of demands on you constantly for all these things. One last thing as well to remember is that as a destroyer, yes, first of all, it's a very, very hard to play class. It takes a lot of skill because you really have to have good knowledge about enemy destroyer capabilities, but it's generally important to remember that you don't want to throw your ship away in the early stages of the game, okay? The longer a destroyer is in the game, the more useful you become. Especially as the game goes on, if you're able to maintain like permanent vision, maintain a torpedo threat, maintain the capabilities of going to take a cap or whatever, the more useful you are for your team. An important point to make as well is in CV-less games, a good destroyer can literally make or break their team's efforts. So, try to work really hard on, all the things we've talked about in the course of this video. Anyways, folks, that pretty much wraps up this destroyer video. I hope you've found some interesting tips and advice on where you should be, what you should be doing at any particular time on the three major sort of types of destroyers in the games. Obviously, there is still individual nuance that I'm not going to be able to cover in this video. For example, Z52, with its hydroacoustic. How can you best make use of that? I did not cover that obviously in this video because that would be a very ship-specific type video. But all in all, just giving you an overall sense of the three major different roles and sort of how to utilize your ship's capabilities, I guess, in those three different roles. And I hope that does help. If you have any questions, of course, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. For some of you, I'm sure you're probably going to be wondering why I was a lot quieter in this video compared to some of the other ones. It's because I'm recording in the middle of the night and I'm trying not to bother my neighbors. There's been a not so nice spat with them recently about noise and volume, both during the day and at night. So I'm trying to keep it down right now. Anyways, folks, take care. Have yourselves a good one. Stay safe out there. Stay home. And I'll talk to all of you again next time.